There's nothing better than picking up a fresh baked scone to go with your coffee or tea, but what if you could get that restaurant taste or better in your own home? These pumpkin scones are surprisingly easy to make, and with the addition of toffee pieces and cookie butter glaze, it's even better than you'll find in the coffee shops this time of year. If you've ever wanted to make a great artisan treat that'll impress your family and friends, this is it. So grab a cup of hot cocoa. It's time to bake up some magic in Mrs. Kringle's kitchen. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees. In a large mixing bowl, add your 2 cups of all-purpose flour. To that, add your 1 tablespoon of baking powder, ½ teaspoon of baking soda, ½ teaspoon of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and your ½ cup of brown sugar. I used a pastry cutter to combine all of the ingredients, but you can just use a big spoon or fork if you prefer until they're well mixed. Add the 3½ tablespoons of cold cubed butter. Use the pastry cutter or 2 forks in a crisscross style to cut in the butter until large coarse crumbs form in your flour from the butter. This will take a few minutes, but consider it your baking meditation time. This is how it will look when it's been cut in. In a separate bowl, add the ½ cup of pumpkin puree, making sure that you're not using pumpkin pie filling because they're 2 different things. Add your ½ cup of milk, 1 large egg, and your teaspoon of vanilla. Mix the wet items until they're well combined. Add the wet ingredients to the flour mixture. Begin lightly stirring the ingredients until they just come together enough to make a dough. Flour your surface that you'll be using to knead the dough. Turn the dough out onto the floured surface and spread it out slightly. Add about 1/3 of the 1/4 cup of toffee baking pieces on the top and lightly knead it into the dough. Repeat it with the next third and so on until you've added all of your toffee pieces and have them evenly distributed. When the dough has come together, pat it into about an 8 by 8 inch circle, like the size of a single layer cake. Use a parchment paper lined cookie sheet when you're ready to bake. If it's rolling on you, just grab a little dough from the bowl and use it as glue on the underside corners to keep it down. I like to use a food scraper to help me loosen the disc of dough from the table, and then it helps to safely move it to the cookie sheet. If you have a long spatula, that could work just as well. Cut the dough into 8 slices before baking. Bake for 20 minutes. If your oven coil is close to the scones, cover it with foil the final 5 minutes to keep it from burning. Yes, please. When the scones are done, cut them on the score marks that you made prior to baking so that they can cool. You can see the pumpkin toffee goodness that awaits. But wait, there's more. It's time to make the Biscoff Glaze. Add your 2 tablespoons of milk. I used almonds for this batch, but you can use any kind of milk that you have on hand, to the 1 cup of confectioner's sugar, and give it a stir with a whisk or fork until it comes together. Then add the tablespoon of Biscoff Spread to the glaze and stir it until well combined. It's all I can do to keep Mr. Kringle out of it before I'm able to use it. Now it's time to pipe, so grab a sandwich bag and a small glass. If you put the sandwich bag in the glass and open the top, you'll be able to pour in the glaze without a mess. Then zip the top, pushing out any air. On the very corner on the bottom, cut the very tip of the baggie and fold it up on itself so that it doesn't leak onto your counter or table. When you're ready to glaze, fold the sides of the baggie together. You'll apply pressure from the top downward so that the glaze flows easily from its impromptu piping bag. Go back and forth across the scone to drizzle the glaze. You don't need to apply much pressure at all. Gravity does most of the work. That scone is pretty much begging to be eaten, isn't it? I don't think we should disappoint it. Glaze up the rest of your scones and enjoy the fruits of your baking labor. Because scones have a slightly drier texture, they're perfect with a nice chai tea, your favorite coffee, or Mr. Kringle and I just dunked them in some milk. If you like this recipe, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so that you can get more home-baked goodness sent right to you straight from Mrs. Kringle's kitchen.